Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Out here doing a little fishing today on one of my favorite places, Santee Cooper in South Carolina. Santee Cooper, if you're not familiar with it, has just tons and tons of acreage of water. It's got an upper lake, Lake Marion, and a lower lake, Lake Moultrie, and they're connected with a diversion canal. And it just makes for an enormous fishery. So you've got a lot of variety to choose from here if you want to go out and fish. You know, even though it's a lowland reservoir, so it doesn't really have a, 25 feet is super deep in this lake, super deep. Most of it on this upper end of the lake is, 10, 12 feet is deep water. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm on the upper end, and I thought I'd come out here and kind of pre-fish a little bit, see what's happening on this end of the lake for a tournament coming up in a couple of weeks, and see what's happening with these cover-oriented fish, the fish that live in the vegetation, live around the trees, and eat bluegill when her bluegill are about to spawn again with the full moon coming. So I thought I'd give them a shot, see what's going on. And my baits of choice today are a frog and a swim jig. So I thought I'd talk about that just for a moment. Let's get my ideas on frogging and swim jigging. Let's start with the frog. Frog is one of my favorite lures of all time. Back in 2004, when I think it was 2004 Classic on Lake Wiley, and Dean Rojas just kind of brought the whole frog phenomenon to life when he was throwing that Bosu frog and up there in the river, and the fish were just eating it. And I got on board with that right away. I rode the frog train, and I'm still riding it. I love that bait. The presentation is fun. The bite is fun, and just catching them on a frog just really makes my day. If I can catch them any way, frog is going to be the way that I want to do it. But let's talk about the frog for just a second. There are really three types of frogs, I guess, that I really kind of choose from. I have just a hollow body frog. This is a Snag Proof Bobby's Perfect Frog, and in my opinion, when you're just throwing a frog over vegetation, it doesn't get any better than this one right here. This frog has a lot of innovations that a lot of other frog companies have followed. Like the inner tube technology, that the shaft of that hook, there's a tube built into the frog body, and so if water gets in through the nose, it stays within the tube, doesn't get into the frog body, and comes out through the back end where the hook exits. So the water has a channel to run through, and it never gets into the frog body. So this frog is never going to sit down like that. It's always going to stay in a great profile position, so you can work it, walk the dog with it, pop it along, whatever you want to do with it. And the hooks sit right up on the back, very weedless. I've caught so many fish on this frog, I really can't even come close to making a guess at how many fish I've caught on this frog. This is my #1 frog when it comes to, if I had one to choose, this would be it. Just one, this would be it, because I can throw it around anything. I can skip it up under overhanging cover. I can fish it on the mats. I can fish it in clear water. I can take a clear one of these and throw it around shad spawn and catch them like that. So this frog right here, Bobby's Perfect Frog from Snag Proof, best one that I've ever used. Now, it doesn't have a lot of the flashy colors, even though they're owned by a new company right now, and those color patterns might change. In fact, I expect them to come out with all the flashy colors that all the other companies have. But I've done really well with this. This is just old green pumpkin. I put my own skirt in it, and it works fantastic. So the hollow body frog, just with the old cone nose, walks really well, has a nice keel bottom to it, so it's easy to manipulate. And when they bite it, you catch them. So the hookup ratio is real good on this. Love the Snag Proof Bobby's Perfect Frog. If you want a little bit smaller profile in a frog, same type of frog as the Bobby's Perfect Frog, but this is the Terminator frog, and it's a smaller body. Let's hold it up to next to the Bobby's Perfect Frog. Now you can kind of see how much smaller the profile is, and sometimes that makes all the difference in the world. When those fish are a little bit finicky, or they're eating those small bluegill, that guy right there is going to get it done. It's heavy too. This thing weighs over a ½ an ounce, so you can really throw it. You can zip it in there. It's not lightweight. You can keep it on your frog rod of choice. Put your heaviest line on there, 65-pound braid, and you can throw it all day long without any problem. I like to throw 50-pound line, unless I'm in the really heavy stuff. Then I'll go 65, because the 50 will break on you a little bit. You got to be careful with that. If it gets a little nick in it, or it gets a little bit of abrasion on it where you've been rubbing over the cover, the 50 can snap. 65 pound is my choice, but I will throw 50 because it casts so well. And that smaller frog right there, that Terminator frog, is really good. So of those two kind of traditional body frogs, profile frogs, those are the two that I like. And then when it comes to the popping frog, there's really two of those that I like. The one that I've got tied on right now is kind of the go-to standard when it comes to popping frogs, and that's the Spro. The Spro popping frog, they just don't make them any better than that. I don't care who it is. I've tried them all. There are lots of good ones out there, but this one here, outside of the size of the hook, it's only got a 3/0 hook in it, and I would love to see a 4/0 hook, maybe a little bit, change the body up just a little bit so it can ride on that 4/0 hook for a little bit deeper bite. I would like that, but I've got no complaints really on that. It's a 3/0 hook, but the profile is good. The action is good with the keel-shaped bottom, and it pops and spits water like crazy. This frog, if you're only going to go for one popping frog and you don't want to get cluttered down with choices, the Spro popping frog, that's the one to go with. But there's another one that I really, really like, and again, I go back to that Terminator. They've done a really good job of bringing out their frogs. I mean, when I talked about those flashy color patterns, this is one of them. That is a bluegill pattern, and it's got the little orange throat and a little white belly with the bars on the side like the bluegill get in their pattern. It's a gorgeous frog. It's beautiful. Got a nice little skirt on it, and I trim them up just a little bit. But the hooks on this bait, super sharp. You got to keep your line off these hooks because these hooks will nick your line. You know how you make a cast or you skip it and the frog will want to roll over a little bit, and it gets caught around the back of the hook. The barb on this thing is so sharp that it might nick your line a little bit. You got to be careful when you're throwing this frog, especially because the line itself will nick your, or the hook itself will nick your line. But the bluegill color, they've got lots of great colors with that Terminator line. It spits well, it throws extremely well. Just a great looking profile, super finish on it, and I really like this frog. It does a great job. And then the other frog that doesn't get a lot of play, but I guarantee you there's a ton of pros on both circuits, all three circuits, that throw this frog and they don't tell anybody about it because they don't sponsor a lot of people. To give away frogs. It's a small company. Well, it was a small company. Now it's owned by a much bigger company, so that might change. But this is the Snag Proof Wobbletron, and it's got its own action in the legs, and it's got a wide base on the body. Skips good, heavy, throws like a bullet. Got a nice shaped body, comes through cover extremely well, hooks right on the back. And I'll tell you one thing about and this goes back to the Bobby's Perfect frog. See how the back end of the bait tapers right where the hook comes out of the body? That's not the way it's done on a lot of frogs, and that creates a problem for me because there's so much. If you don't have that taper, back there behind the wide part of the body where the hooks come out, there's so much plastic back there that hook can get wound and bound up around the hook points and make it difficult to penetrate and get a good hook set. I think that's one reason, at least in my opinion, that the Bobby's Perfect frog has such good hookup ratio, and that's because the frog has that taper in the back where the hooks come out, and it just gives the hook a lot of room to work. And I just think it's a genius. It's a great design, and it works extremely well. And I don't know why other companies don't copy it a little bit more, to be frankly honest with you, because it's a great design. Same thing with their Wobbletron. It tapers in the back, gives the hooks a lot of room to work, and they hook up. And this thing's just got great action. You don't have to do anything to it. Throw it out there, reel it in, just find you a pace that works, and it's going to catch them. This frog really works well. So that's pretty much the frog setup that I use, and I don't go real crazy on the colors. The black and the white, a couple of specialty patterns like a bluegill. Those are the ones I stick with, a green pumpkin. Those work really well in just about all your seasons, and then I love to go with that clear. There's a clear frog in just about every manufacturer's lineup. They got a clear frog, and sometimes, good gosh, and the water doesn't have to be clear for that frog to work, but just sometimes just having that action that the fish can see what's going on, but they don't get a great look at that bait, but they're attacking the action. And that clear one is just excellent. You got to have a clear one in your box, no matter what colors you like. You got to have a clear. The setup that I use is pretty much standard for everybody else. This particular rod right here is a Dobbyns Fury series. It's the 735C. It's a great rod. It's got a great tip to it, so you can skip cast it. You can throw it a long way. It's got plenty of backbone, so you can lean on them and get them out of the heavy cover if that's what you need to do. I got it on a Revo Rocket, so I get the 10-to-1 ratio. And I'm not one of those guys that's got to have the super fastest reel. You know, I grew up, my first bait caster was a 5.3-to-1 Abu Garcia from way back in the day, the old round style reel. And I used them forever, and I can still use that gear ratio without any problem at all. But this one's super fast, takes up line real quick. Sometimes you need to do that when you're frog fishing to catch up with a fish and drive that hook home. But so the Dobbyns rod with the rocket reel, and this is spider wire, the Stealth, and 65 pound, and the green is what I've been using. But there are tons of great braid options out there. So you're not going to go wrong with just about any of them that you pick. I don't think I've had but maybe one or two braids that I've tied on, and it's not that they were bad lines, they just didn't cast as well as I wanted them to. So I probably could have adjusted my poundage to get a different diameter line and done really well with it. But the spider wires worked good for me for a number of years and hasn't shown me any reason to change, so I've stayed with it. Now, that was the frog. Now real quickly we'll cover the swim jig, because it's when I'm throwing the frog, I usually have a swim jig close by. And you know, I'm real simple when it comes to the swim jigs. There are several good ones out there on the market. Nichols makes a good one, Santone makes a good one, Dirty Jigs makes a good one. Gosh, there are just so many of them. You know, Strike King makes a good one. I know I'm leaving a ton of them out that make really good. Buckeye makes a good one. They make really good jigs. But the things that I look for, if I'm looking for a swim jig, don't know a whole lot about them, then I like to get a little bit of a cone head, a little bit of a pointed head. Helps it really come through that vegetation, and it really comes through the wood very well. This one's got a little bit wider base. If you can see, it's pointed in the front, but it's got a little bit of neck to it right there. And what that does is, if this thing rides up on a piece of wood, that little bit of width on the neck keeps that hook from rolling over too much to catch that wood. So it makes it a little bit more versatile in wood or around docks, as well as being fantastic in vegetation. So it comes with a really good skirt. It's not a fancy skirt, but you know, it's got a nice balloon to it, so it puffs out really good, got a lot of action. The hook keeper on this one, this is a Strike King, by the way, if I didn't mention that, the Strike King Hack Attack swim jig. And I'll tell you the main reason why I have this jig. It's got a really good little bait keeper back here, so your plastic or your trailer of choice will stay on. And the hook is what the premium deal is. That's like a 5/0 hook in this particular jig right here, and it is sharp, and man, you don't miss them. When they bite this, you don't miss them. So the Hack Attack jig has been really good for me. And I'll tell you one other thing that I really like about this jig, and that is the angle of that hook guard, or the weed guard. It's angled back enough over the hook point to where I don't have to mash it down. Some of them you buy and it's standing up like that. I'm out on that. I don't want that, because I like to get my weed guard, if it's a fiber weed guard like this, and spread it out. So it's got a little bit of width on both sides of the point of the hook. So when it does roll over some cover, the weed guard catches it, keeps it, that hook from digging in, and you can just bring it on through. But these are like, both of these baits, the frog and the swim jig, are like four-wheel drive vehicles for me. I throw them in the thickest, meanest, nastiest stuff, and you know, to pull those fish out of there. So I'm not afraid to cast it anywhere, anytime. These things come through cover, and every now and then you're going to get hung up, but that's fishing. You're trying to get in there where the fish live, and you're going to have to make that tough cast every now and then. The only thing that I would, well, before I say this, get to the setup on this, you know, it's not really much different than the frog setup for me. The swim jig and the frog. One's kind of a moving bait. The other one's kind of a surface bait that I can pause and work in, kind of deliberately over some spots. But they catch the same fish, and that's why when I'm frog fishing or swim jig fishing, I've got the other one close by, because I'm going to come up on a piece of cover that it just fits a frog a little better, or fits a swim jig a little better. So these two, they're kind of like the 1-2 punch. I have these together just about all the time, and the setup's about the same. Again, this is a Dobbyns rod, Champion Series 733 C. Fantastic rod, super lightweight, great handle. The cork is premium on it. I've got I got a Revo SX on here. I love those Abu Garcia reels, but there are tons of really good reels out there. You know, Luz makes Luz makes a fantastic reel. Daiwa, of course, Shimano. They make good. Everybody's got good stuff. Just find one that fits your hands good. Is nice and smooth to you, give you some confidence with the throw, and buy it and go throw it. They're going to work good for you. Got great drag systems, and they all work well. Again, I usually go with 50 to 65 pound line on the Swim Jig, and every now and then I'll keep the braid on, but I'll tie a fluorocarbon leader on there, depending on the watercolor. Sometimes the fish are a little bit finicky on that, and I'll go to that if it makes a difference. But that's kind of the setup for me on the frogs and the Swim Jigs. You know, if you got anything out of that, great. Hit the like and subscribe button. I'm going to have more content coming your way. The lowdown is going to be full of content about a wide variety of topics. Today it's fishing. Tomorrow it might be golf. The next day it might be weight training and fitness for you know, general purpose or golf or athletic sport specific type of training. But we're going to have a ton of information for a whole wide variety of an audience of a bunch of different people. So keep tuned in. Hit the notification button or the little bell down there. I'll have some information in the links below, and check out all these baits. Normally, you know, I buy a lot of these online because my local store doesn't have them a lot of times, and I've been shopping at a tackle warehouse out in California for a number of years, and they've always treated me right. So if you're looking for something, that'd be a good place to start. Thanks for tuning in. I'll have more stuff for you real soon.